I've been down since 1986, about 32 years. I think for most of my life, I ran away because I didn't like where I came from. I didn't like my situation. And I really didn't like me because I felt that where I came from, nobody respected it. They looked at me as nothing.
I just really had no sense of self-worth, self-esteem. I felt like a failure.
As I grew up, I got involved with gangs. And being involved with gangs, you don't have no choice but to fight when it was time to fight.
The punishment that I had starting at a very young age was like a corporal beating. And somewhere in that process, I just learned that it must be me because a parent wouldn't do that. They're there, they're right. I must be wrong.
It is just not like anything else to go in and sit across from people who have no idea how they got into the trouble that they're in the first place, but are starving to know why.
The things that get us into trouble are distortions of something good in us. When people are given even a little bit of opportunity to see that part of themselves, really amazing things can happen, and quicker than people might suspect.
You know, I think what lots of times in our culture we miss is that, people want to be good. They want to be accepted in a positive way. But, with gang cultures and, with men being in foster care or growing up in the juvenile justice system, they haven't been shown those opportunities.
People that we have in prisons and jails are part of the fabric of our society, and they are marginalized. They are some of the most hurting people on the planet. So there's this massive hurting population that we've just shunted to the side and just said, you know what, they'll have to deal with their own stuff.
You cannot move forward as a person and thereby as part of a team or a community if you are detached and unaware of your thinking and your actions and your consequences.
Enneagram Prison Project is on a mission to help people to understand why we do what we do, using the Enneagram to inspire transformation through self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-compassion.
We celebrate people finding their brilliance and seeing their beauty and knowing that they're more than bad things that they've done.
There's nothing like thinking I am the worst possible person on the planet, thinking I am reprehensible, and then realizing that's a lie.
It opened my heart. That's what it opened. It opened my heart up to life.
The truth opened up considerably, allowing me to really get down to the basic details of what it really is like to live in that shell of shame of what I've done to another person. And that opened up to me an individuality that I'd never felt before. I was able to communicate the truth as I saw it.
I was able to learn how to take the layers off and go back, way back into my childhood, and learn that the things that happened to me were not because of me. It was because of other broken people that I could forgive. And when that time came where I could start to forgive, it was like freeing myself.
Before I could be here physically, but I wasn't here mentally right. Most of the time now, I'm present. So being present helps.
A lot of the suffering in human beings gets perpetuated by ourselves. We continue to enact on ourselves the kind of abuse that we suffered as a way to sort of protect ourselves from it. When people have some relief from that kind of these patterns of self-abuse, when there's some of that mercy flowing, it births in them the possibility, the hope of being who they really are.
The Enneagram has been my focus for the last 3 years. And it was sort of that last piece I needed to know that I can trust people. I don't easily give away trusting other people.
The good news about human beings is that if they were hurt in relationship, they can also be healed in relationship. So what really makes a difference is actually the emotional context. So we talk about correctional institutions, and so often they don't correct anything. People that go into the prisons and volunteer, they're actually taking the word correction very seriously.
This is the only thing that's ever made sense to me. You feel it with this program. Everybody cares, everybody's so kind. You want to be like that. You want to be a better person like that. I don't know. I've been out of prison a few times. That's been my way of life for so long, so I didn't really know anything different. This time I had the support system from EPP, and this is where I feel I need to be, so helping others and helping myself.
People are not in prison because they're bad people. They are in prison because things have happened in their life that created an instant that ended up with them in prison, but they're not bad people. They're wonderful people.
There's healing going on, but it's going on everywhere. It's not just the inmate that's being healed. It's actually the teacher. It's the visitors that are coming in and witnessing. It's the ROs and the COs that are witnessing how that person is changing. It's the bureaucracy and organization that's in the jails and prisons that can see that something can happen, right? And all of this is just a spark. So they can go and say, okay, I can make this change too.
Will you all please take a breath? The night before she hung herself, my 34-year-old mother tucked my 2 brothers and sister into bed and said goodbye to each of them. I don't remember her saying goodbye to me. Something was altered in my 5-year-old psyche that night. And hours later, as we drove away from that home, I finally understood that my mother decided to die, and I quietly decided inside of myself that must have been because of me. And decades later, the renowned addiction specialist, Dr. Gabor Mate, would brilliantly name that moment for me when he said, trauma is not what happened to you, it's what happened inside of you as a result. For years after that, I would tell myself a story about my lack, never my mom's. In order to stay connected to her, I had to disconnect from myself. It was an unconscious, choiceless choice, and it would become a lifelong habit. Eventually, I had 3 little boys of my own that I loved so much it hurt, but I was outnumbered by them. And I couldn't predict or control their behavior. I was becoming an angry mom. And I couldn't have told you that about myself at the time, but now I can see how I was. And so I put myself into a parenting class that introduced me to a psychological tool called the Enneagram. It helped me to understand the unconscious cognitive, emotional, and behavioral strategies we all use to survive our childhoods. And the first thing this profound system taught me is that we all come into the world as these divine little sparks, ready to love and be loved. We come essentially good and lovable, valuable, unique, knowing, and trusting, free and alive and whole. We come wired with the expectation that who we are will be seen and reflected back to us. Every child comes ready to receive this simple confirmation of our lovability. It's so basic, it's so fundamental. And I also learned that everyone experiences trauma when they're small, big ones and little ones. You don't have to have a huge shock to form a personality. Any old dysfunction will do. And as the famous English psychoanalyst D.W. Winnicott once said, things that happen to us should never have happened. And there are things that should have happened that didn't. The Enneagram shows us not only what we do with all of this, but fascinatingly, why. We start to lose the thread to who we once knew ourselves to be. We're so self-forgetting, we start to believe there's either something wrong with us or with everyone else. We become convinced that the world isn't actually safe. We're not really in control. We're not even loved, or worse, lovable. The bigger the shock, the bigger the disconnect, the bigger the addiction to our personality. My parenting class was teaching me that children don't rebel against their parents. They're rebelling against what's happening inside of them. Kids want what everyone wants, to be respected and connected and to know that we're safe. All human behavior is an attempt to get one need met, to know that we're loved. And when we think we're not, a part of us protests and tries to find our way back home, to remember ourselves. But duality is ego's default. We feel we have to try to be something, only to find out we're trying to avoid being something else. In 9 different ways, everyone creates an identity out of the ingredients of childhood. I'm good, not bad. I'm helpful, not needy. I'm successful, not worthless. I'm unique, not ordinary. I'm knowing, not ignorant. I'm loyal, not dependent. Happy, not hurting. Strong, not weak. Peaceful, not disconnected. We're so patterned, we're predictable. But the petulant habit of trying to be something that we already are is crazy making. It can go on for years or lifetimes. And actually, part of us does remember. We can recall our true self just enough to mimic it, even though we know it's not the same. The imitation is called ego. Ego is useful. It buffers us from the wound, and it seems to keep us from it, but eventually we can hardly tell the difference between the egoic masks we wear and who we really are. This is the human condition. It's not permanent. It is really painful. I identified as an Enneagram Type 1, the idealist. The young one gets the idea that it's not okay to be angry. Anger is not a problem, but my distortion of it had become a big one. Inside, I was raging against how unfair my life was and then scolding myself for not getting over it. I was in a prison of personality, trying so hard to get on the right side of things that I couldn't remember that I always had been. And so I distracted myself from myself by becoming a certified Enneagram teacher. I know. And the first place I was invited to teach was a prison. The idealist in me could see the Enneagram's real application in helping people to understand the trouble they get in with their personality. It was so ironic because I was in so much more trouble with myself than I knew. Inside, I felt myself to be a human potentialist, but nothing in my world was as I felt it should be. Not my husband, my kids, my parents, my past, and certainly not me. People who know the Enneagram but don't really know themselves, who can't see their own ego driving them in real time, are dangerous. I know, because I was one. Children who can't hold their temper are a handful. Adults are even worse. Without having the words to name their pain, hurting kids hurt people. They act it out by becoming bullies or victims. They become class clowns. And we tell them, grow up. And then we send them to school hoping that they'll figure it out. And when they can't, the teachers send them to the principal. The schools send them to the system. The courts send them to juvie. And eventually, we send them to the Department of Corrections, which doesn't correct a thing. I cut my teeth learning how to teach the Enneagram in prison. And among my first students were a serial bank robber, a man on the FBI's most dangerous list, a former PhD student with a 16-year crystal meth addiction, a gang leader for the Norteños, and a 65-year-old grandma who was in for embezzlement. The people who I met behind bars were my perfect mirror. They told me about the prisons made for them during childhood, and then they showed me the one of my own. Together, we retraced our steps to our own goodness. We charted the course of our own healing, and along the way, we changed our minds about who we took ourselves to be. We remembered that love belongs to all of us, and it is our birthright to be free to be who we really are. The Enneagram is a tool of self-empowerment. We can use it to remember how much choice we have. Whether we're incarcerated or not, we are so free. We can choose our own thoughts. But first, we have to unlearn what we were conditioned to believe about ourselves when we were small. The real prison is in our minds. What I saw inside inspired the nonprofit I founded and called Enneagram Prison Project. EPP is on a mission to help people to understand why we do what we do, using the Enneagram to inspire transformation on both sides of the bars through self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-compassion. Over the last decade of watching people wake up to who they really are, I founded a benefit corporation called the Human Potentialists. We take the curriculum EPP taught us and we teach it to places like Google and Apple. And the curriculum is there because we know that we are all in a prison of our own making in the way that we suffer ourselves. We are democratizing the Enneagram, and we know that it has always been meant for everyone, but not everyone has had access to it. The realest wisdom keepers and the most inspiring people I have ever met are the EPP ambassadors who learned the Enneagram before they ever got out of prison, and they learned the prison that was in their minds. And they were free before they were even released. I want to introduce you to 4 very special ambassadors. But first, I want to ask you to just take another breath. If you would, just close your eyes for a moment. I invite you to feel your feet. Feel how the chair is supporting you, and find your breath. And with your next breath, I invite you to form a memory of what you consider to be the worst thing you've ever done. Let it take shape. Remember how it made you feel. Notice what's happening inside of your body. Keep breathing. You can let the memory go. And with your next breath, I invite you to some self-compassion for where you were at that time in your life. And take one more breath. Feel your feet and your body in the seat. And you can open up your eyes. It'd be so nice if I could see the audience a little bit better. They told me if I said that, magic things would happen. I'd like you to imagine how you would feel if I asked you, thank you, to turn to the person next to you and share with them the thing that you just remembered. I am not going to ask you to do that. Right. I am going to invite you to turn to the person next to you and simply meet their eyes and place a hand on your heart and breathe in the compassion for one another, just for a moment. Thank you. The people you are about to be taught by are my teachers, and I know they will be yours. And they are the most courageous people I've ever known, who have worked so many things inside of themselves. They've crossed a chasm of grief and shame and self-hate to find the very theme of this conference and to be able to actually embody love for themselves and for the rest of us. Would you please help me welcome Alex Senegal, Troy Phillips, Renee Lopez, and Dustin Baldwin.
Hey.
And since magic did happen, I might say that we might require a box of tissue.
Yeah.
Up here.
I'm
Take
halfway,
a breath. All of you. It's really an honor to be here. It feels so cozy. And we've journeyed a lot together, the 5 of us, but all of us that are part of Enneagram Prison Project that are here in support, anyone who's listening, and thank you for the live stream, because really we intend to bring this whole recording back into the jails and prisons where we serve and where our hearts really reside. Yesterday, we were in, just paying attention to these clocks for the first time. Good thing to know. Okay. Yesterday, we were in Louisville Metro Department of Corrections with a courageous class that has been studying our curriculum for the last 24 hours over 4 weeks' time in 1 month. And each of these ambassadors and I and our EPP guides on the inside, our executive director and guests, we were all privileged to sit with men in orange who were taking up this curriculum in the most extraordinary ways. And We sat very similar to this, wearing less makeup and fancy clothes than this, but with the same exact heart. And I'm about to ask Dustin a question that I asked yesterday, and I just want to set the backdrop for you, because we were in the 5th floor gymnasium that opens to the outside, and it had, it was very big and echoey and a little bit cool. There's a faint smell of urine. We've been there when it's warm, and it's much stronger. There was a lot of noise out in the background, and every time someone spoke, you could hear it kind of reverberate. And as I asked Dustin this question I'm about to ask him, you could start to hear a banging, like almost a sound of an instrument or something on a pipe. And it got louder and louder, and it wasn't stopping. And we came to understand that that was one of the human beings housed next to us who was in some mental state where he actually couldn't stop. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was actually so haunting. And that was the perfect environment for us to look out at this circle of courageous souls and to get to speak to what we know and what we've been teaching each other over the last decade and plus. That is, there are things that happen to us when we're small that set the backdrop for how we start to see ourselves. And when we cut off our hearts, then what we do instead is we start to imitate those essential qualities. And Dustin, I know you relate to type 8 on the Enneagram, and the 8's essential qualities, the essence of 8. Actually, just raise your hand if you know the Enneagram. This will help a girl out. Oh, okay, about half of you.
Right.
Okay, well, if you don't get this, we have a session tomorrow from 2 to 5. I'm not just free advertising. I think there's some seats left.
Maybe worth coming.
My attempt is not to teach the Enneagram. My attempt is to give you enough finger holds to appreciate what a profound tool it is and how it helps us to remember ourselves. Type 8s come to teach the rest of us about strength and about aliveness, about immediacy. But the young 8 gets the idea that only the strong survive. They cut off from the essence of this, and they start trying to be strong, push against things that are oppressive, to disrupt things, to create intensity in order to feel the imitation of that aliveness. I'm trying to find my way back there if I'm a type 8. And so, Dustin, I just want to turn to you, and I actually can. I invite you to take a breath, and I'm wondering, Dustin, first of all, how does it feel to be right here where you are?
As I'm listening to you, I realize that this is strength. Just to be up here and to actually be received and to feel valued for for having something to offer in just being me. Mm. It's a lot to take in.
Mm. It is a lot to take in. Just keep breathing. You're doing great. You're already picking up what we're laying down, and it's really heartening. It's not always this way when people are starting to look at what Jimpa said, why we humans, this paradox, why we humans have such beautiful qualities and we've done such horrible things, right? It's not actually so hard to understand. And I want to ask you if you could help us to understand, Dustin, it's just this picture of innocence right here with the way that you're meeting all of us. What is it that happened to you when you were small that helped sort of set up got in the way of you knowing that real strength inside of you?
Really, it was this idea of a bit of shame, and also really that there's actually something wrong with me. And the thought, and I internalized that and processed that inside as a child, from hearing things from my family, and this wasn't intentional, right? I heard a lot that I have a lot of energy. I love hard, both in the physical sense and emotional sense. And so as a small child, growing up in the country, I would I'd wake up, powered up, revved up, ready for the day. I'd run in the room, I'd find my people, my grandma, my mom, and I would jump in all over them, and I'm talk loud and big energy. And now that I have my own kids, my own child, I can see how at times that's a lot. I'm overstimulating. I'm totally overstimulating them. And so I heard quite a bit that you're too much. You go outside, go somewhere else. And as a small child, I could remember how I processed that as in, I'm too much. Not what I'm doing is too much. Not that I'm overstimulating. Not that this, and this, right? It's that I, as a small child, am too much. And I process that as there's something wrong with me. And because of that reason, my family didn't want me around. The people I had attachment to didn't want me around. And so then there was like this shame in that for me. And anger would really, and I get upset. So I would stick around till I heard I was too much, and then I had to go somewhere else.
I just want to put a pin right here, because that's the basic setup for all of us. The basic building blocks of personality come from early childhood. So very early, I mean, all of you were one of these kids, right? Very early, we get the idea that I am too much or not enough of something. And so inside, then that contraction happens. Actually, this is the part that we really say so clearly in custody, and also at Google and Apple, by the way, that the real thing, the job of the person who's raising us, it's their job to reflect back these qualities. It's our parents' job to hold on to themselves and find a compassionate, gentle way to honor the little being, to recognize all this energy inside of them. But most of us didn't get that either, right? And so we're not throwing anybody under the bus, but really, that wasn't your fault and it wasn't your job either. And so what did you do with all of that messaging?
As a small child, I spent a lot of time outdoors. Then as I got older, when I started going to school, I also got bullied quite a bit. Also for being too much and for being different on how I dressed and talked. Being from the country, wasn't one of the city kids. I eventually found belonging in gangs. Where that too much energy, that too much force, that too much over the top was praised. And that made me feel accepted. And I was constantly pushing that limit to see how far I can go.
And this is the other setup, isn't it? Because ego is a bottomless pit. And if the essence of 8 is this aliveness, right? The imitation of it is this violence, the excessiveness, the lust, the all of that. And there's no amount of that will ever quell the sense of not being enough inside. But it doesn't keep us from trying, because it's all going on underground. It's unconscious. And so how far can you take it, Dustin? Like what was it that finally stopped you?
Well, eventually even that lifestyle, the crimes and violence that I was committing were eating me up in the inside as well, but I continued to do it, and that was a big part of what led to a 20-year meth addiction. And it was all kind of interwoven with when crime after crime started happening. I got arrested and sent to county jail 15 to 20 times, and then I served 10 years of my life in 3 different prison terms in prison.
Thank you, Dustin. Please take a breath. You're letting us into so much of your life, and you don't have to. This is such a choice for you to, in a way, take back your own life experience. And I'm wondering, because you mentioned it, when we talk about addiction, the first addiction we all have is to our personality. We are fiercely addicted to that thing. But when it doesn't take the edge off, we still want to feel okay. And this is the work of Gabor Mate that's been so instructive in his compassionate approach to addiction. What did the meth make you feel?
Meth had a lot of things for me. One piece was I really enjoyed when I would do meth with a group of friends. Meth made you very talkative. And so I used to love just sitting around in a room for literally days straight, just talking, like having these real deep conversations, or whatever thought were deep, I don't know. But they were, at the time, they were really important. And but the other part, the part that I really, really enjoyed in meth is it feeded my ego even more, because I have this, I really thrived off this energy I had, this life force that was going on inside of me. And I also had this idea of this strength that was, I'm unstoppable. I could literally do anything. And with meth, it amplified all those feelings 100 times over. So it really was amplifying the challenging and gifted parts of my ego simultaneously.
Like, take that in, right? What a crazy setup, because it's perpetuating the ego, but it's also this very important first thing that you shared, helping you to feel the very thing that jumping on your parents first thing in the morning was all you wanted to feel, was connected. Mm-hmm. And I also know that you used to really get that connection met with animals when you were small. Is that true?
Yeah, because I was grew up in a farm and there weren't other kids around, and I was in my mind too much and spent all the time outside. We had a lot of animals, horses, chickens, pigs, all that, rabbits. And I developed a friendship with all of them. And it was really deep because they never told me I was too much.
Mm. Thank you, Dustin. You are not too much. Dustin, can you help us understand how you met the Enneagram?
Yeah, it was back in county jail in 2016, 2015, somewhere around there. And I was, like some of our other folks up here, I was in this program called RCP. And basically RCP is, you're in these,
regimented correctional program. Marching in lines, sounding off.
Do all this stuff, yeah. But you get to go to classes throughout the day, and you used to be able to make your schedule if there was multiple classes available. And I heard about this program, EPP. I asked a couple of my buddies that were there, and they're like, you don't want to go to that thing. Everyone's in there crying and talking about their feelings. And the other option, so that was during that time, but the other option was Spanish, to learn Spanish, speak Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, so it's kind of clear what I chose. But I remember I met EPP and we walked in, and there's a lot of thoughts and feelings going along with it. And Susan was there, and we let it start off every class with a centering practice where she invites everybody to close your eyes and do like a guided meditation, which was a very uncomfortable thing to do in county jail as an inmate surrounded by people that you don't trust. And two, it was just something I've never done before. So I remember I closed my eyes, I took a couple deep breaths, and all I could stop thinking about in my mind was my son, the shame of letting my family down, and that, what am I doing with my life? How am I here again? And I remember just tears rolling down. Susan asked me where I went, and I went to the hard place, the place that I didn't ever want to go, which was look inward.
Thank you, Dustin. You know, this is so tender because when we do go inside and we are invited to make contact, we don't initially make contact with who we really are. We first make contact with exactly what you're describing, right? All the shame and guilt and all the egoic distortions. It takes courage to learn how to close our eyes and to stay with what we find. It takes a compassionate witness to be willing to linger there. I needed that, and of course you needed that. And just maybe one or two more sentences, and I'm going to invite Renee to join us next. What is it about the Enneagram that you think was different for helping you to, I mean, you spent a lot of time in county. It wasn't your only program you'd ever seen. How did that help you?
The Enneagram tied everything else together. It gave me an internal dialogue to be able to really understand what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it, and give me power of choice to respond differently in moments and not to be so reactive. And I could go on forever. It's done so much, but I think the power of choice is really the main thing. And it really, I realized that, you know, I'm not too much, and I really believe that. And I just love hard. And
that's right.
And today I'm only able to receive love from others is because I'm able to love myself.
Right. These are the tenets we were just taught in the session before this one. It's so helpful and instructive because I think it's Sherry Uber that I first read it where she said, you know, we can't change what we can't see. And the Enneagram helps us gives us this map to see, well, what am I looking at? It helps me to connect these dots in such a precise and profound way. Thanks for the courage to go first. Don't go anywhere. Coming back to you. And Renee, welcome. You know, Renee leads with type 3, and the 3s come to teach the rest of us about value, about what's precious, about worth. And these are things that we teach without trying because they are our very essence. And there's a real intrinsic value in Renee and in any one of us because all of us have these different qualities. But when you know your type, they're very specific. But the young 3 gets this idea that you're only loved for what you do. And so 3s become little human doings instead of human beings, and they forget that essence of themselves. So Renee, I'm wondering if you could help us to understand this. First of all, where are you right now?
Oh, I'm I wouldn't say recovering. I'm taking in Dustin, really, and just this, and thinking about the 3 religious thinkers, teachers, observers that we had, and how one of them said that you know, we didn't learn how to love. I feel like there was lots of love in my family, but it was given in a place of, you know, we all lived on this compound, and my grandpa and my uncle were raging alcoholics, and my mom and my grandma and my aunt were like codependents. And so what we learned is we love you no matter what, and in that no matter what space, lots of stuff happens. You know, so I used to think stuff like love hurts because these were kind of like the place markers. You know, I've seen my grandma like hit my uncle with a 2x4 because he was fighting with my grandpa. And we weren't even scared. We were just like, whoa, like this was some kind of TV show. And that's just like one of, and then the next day, my grandma is very, everybody's back into, our version of love.
Thank you, Renee, for starting there. First of all, type 3 is from the heart center of intelligence, and you don't have to know the Enneagram to feel the heart with which Renee leads, and that you're not sitting there prepping what you're going to say, you're feeling for your brother Dustin, and that's just how you be. And this statement that you made about how I didn't learn how to love, or I learned that love actually hurts, right? These confusions, these distortions we get innocently. You come by our personalities so innocently. And so then what did you learn to do with this perception that love hurts?
Stay out of the way. My mom she was born with a birth defect, and she's very, very successful in life. She worked for the state for like 20 years. But my first role or safety measure was to be a good son, take care of my mom's needs. And what that looked like was being quiet and obedient, and so I was very isolated because my mom she had 2 kids to take care of, and so she went to work, and because of her handicapness, she had to leave early, and she got home late, and we were left with my grandpa and my uncle. They were our father figures. And so luckily, I think, maybe, I don't know, I learned some stuff about neglect lately, but I was able to hide basically on our property from everybody. So I spent a lot of hours by myself, and when my mom came home, I was under her foot. And I think that, alcohol this is something I was thinking about too. Alcohol was accessible very young for me. We had we're Latin, we're indigenous, and we drink for everything.
How young, Renee?
11.
So you started drinking when you were 11.
Yeah.
And what did alcohol do for you?
I used to think it made me feel good, but I feel like now that I think back, it made me feel nothing.
So if I can't be with the depth of my heart that is really my nature, alcohol's a good move. But just like the doing doesn't get away from it, you can't hide from it, the alcohol ultimately doesn't do it. Then what did you do next? By 12, I tried marijuana, and 13, I was doing crystal meth. Not so regular because it's a little hard to get a hold of when you're 13, but not where I come from. I mean, it is and it isn't. You just got to be diligent, I guess. So Renee, how long were you in your addiction, and when did you meet Enneagram Prison Project?
Well, over 20 years, longer than that. I was actually thinking about my criminal life, which was 20 years, but addiction for probably 30 years. And
can you tell us about how you found the Enneagram EPP? Because this is really kind of a gap that people have to understand. Like, why that? Had you seen other things before? Had you tried to stop?
Yeah, so the case before this one, I was facing, I have all my crimes have to do with possession for sales, and under the influence. I got caught numerous times selling drugs. and under the influence, and all those things that go along with it. And the time before that, the last time I was in there, my top amount of time I could. This is what they do in my county, but I had threatening me with the Habitual Criminal Act, and my top was 44 years, and I don't have any violent crimes. Well, I have a second-degree burglary, but I got attacked. But we won't get into that.
We'll get into that. I think the important thing is it's gone on a long time, right? A long time. And we try very hard to stay away from ourselves, no matter how many things we're losing. There's a lot of loss associated with your addiction.
So the time before that, I was like, I'm gonna, my grandma was Catholic. I was like, with all the chaos in our life, she seemed to have found something in church. So I tried that out, and recovery, which was kind of like a thing that I always tried to do, and it all failed. And then I came back again for the same thing, selling drugs, but some laws had passed, and I went, and you were starting your first class, and you came in, and I was, my mindset was ready. I said, I'm going to take every class they have in here, and I got to do something different. And then you came in, and like you shared at the beginning, you shared that with us in custody. And I thought about what it would feel like if my mom took her life. And because I was so new off drugs, I had this thing like, what's wrong with me again? But it's like if she's using this Enneagram thing, because I feel like I would use drugs every day. And I already did that. So what is it that what does she have?
Right. Renee, I want to invite you to just stay in contact with where you are right now. It's really brave. It's really honest. And it's really your choice. And you're letting other people be privy to this really deep healing that you're still in the midst of. But just like Dustin was sharing, that when you first go inside, the first contact we make is not with ourselves, it's with our conditioning. And so what is it that you found in there eventually that helped Renee to stay with Renee? Because that's actually what we're teaching, is that the only way that we can get out of the ego is to reparent ourselves. And it's not easy.
Well, it didn't happen then, but I'll tell you what happened later when I got out.
Yeah, and then we'll invite Troy and Alex. So if you
just
can,
real quick, I learned how to love. I had a kitten that died recently, and I hated animals, and she died, and I was so sad. And that process helped me see that, like, actually there is stuff in there. Right. Like, I do feel, I want to feel, and it's not scary. Well, it is, but I can take it now.
Right.
I can take it. Like, there's something mysterious and beautiful in there. And
something mysterious and beautiful in there. That's right. I want to just cut to the chase and let you know, type 3 is often the type in personality that says, oh, I don't cry. And when you really 3s have arrived and they've taken off a lot of the mask, this is all you get is heart. So thank you, Renee, for just meeting with us right there. So beautiful. Don't go anywhere. And Troy leads with type 6. And 6s come to teach the rest of us about how to wake up, about awakeness, and about loyalty and commitment. But the young 6 gets the idea that you can't trust anyone, and they're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. They don't get that way out of nothing. And so I just want to invite you all to take a breath. And Troy, where are you right now?
I'm sitting in the presence of self-love. Very good topic today.
Well, tell me about that, how that feels.
Well, in my early childhood, I had love on one hand, in one place, and I wanted love in another place that I wasn't getting. I also felt fear and anger in a place that I wanted that same love.
Where did you have love and where didn't you?
Say it one more
Where
time.
did you have love and where didn't you?
So I had love with my grandparents, my grandfather, and I didn't have love, the love I wanted, the love I sought by my own biological mother. Still hurts today. I still go through it today. But as a child, I ran. I tried to hide. I tried to seek love from other places.
Did you ask your family what was going on? Did you ask them questions?
So the most that I knew at the time was that my mother hated my father. I didn't meet my biological father until I was 27. The reason why my mother hated my father was because he beat her while she was carrying me, and we both almost died. I didn't find this out till I was 16.
How much of the time did you live with your mom?
First 16 years I lived with my grandparents. After my mom had a tragic accident, I started living with her because I wanted to be close to her because she needed my help. But then I also witnessed more abuse from a stepfather that I loved and honestly hated.
So I want to put a pin here because this is really profound teaching from a type 6. If you do know sixes are kind of a walking paradox. Everything they are, they also aren't. They have this incisive mind. They are great questioners, and they are really good BS detectors. And they want to know, is it safe? And they can tell when it's not. But when I ask the questions of what's going on, and I'm either not answered or I'm answered with the evidence that it is not safe, but I know that this is my biological home, it's confusing, Troy. It's so confusing, isn't it? Wasn't it?
Very confusing, very hurtful. As I said, I seeked attention, affection from outside.
Outside where?
Outside the home, in friends, my peers. And one thing led to another, and I started using drugs.
What'd you use?
At an early age, I started using alcohol and marijuana at the age of 13.
Are you noticing the theme? 91% of people in county jail in Santa Clara in California are in for drug-related offenses. What did it make you feel, Troy?
At first, it was the high, the buzz, the euphoria. Then it became to numb, so that I didn't feel, so that I didn't think about what I wasn't getting from the one person that I wanted.
Gabor Mate says if we want to know about the addiction, we have to ask not why the addiction, but why the pain? Where did it come from? It's not hard to understand when you share some of your story with us, the confusion and how you wanted to find some other way of escaping all of that. Yeah. So how bad does it get, Troy, and how far can we take it? Because that's what we do, isn't it, with our personality and our addiction?
So my addiction took me so far as I separated myself completely from humanity. My drug of choice became crack cocaine, which led into violence, criminal activity, which led me to prison.
How much time did you do?
So my crack cocaine addiction started in 1985. My incarceration started in 1988. I did 2 prison terms before I committed my last crime in 2002. And I was sentenced under California's 3 strikes law for 25 years to life. Just a quick backup, I was facing 150 years to life for assault with a deadly weapon. I have children that were 15, 16 at the time. There was so much shame about me being in the county jail and being on TV and that I took a deal for 25 years to life in the California State Prison.
It's an interesting term for so much time, a deal, I have to say. Troy, because there's so much that we want people to understand, I want to invite you to just jump to, if you could, how did Enneagram Prison Project get to meet you?
2005, I was sent to San Quentin Prison. I had a cellmate at the time that was into programming, into people, and to make a long story short, he introduced me to start taking groups. So 2005, I started making changes in my life. Doing groups. I went to school and got a college degree. Jump in 2017, I had a friend that I had been going to groups with since 2005, going through college with, and he says, hey, come take this class with me. When I went into the EPP handed me a key through their lessons, through Susan and 2 others. But they handed me a key. And the key was for me to open my own heart, to love myself, to forgive myself, to understand that I was not my crime, to understand that I was worthy, to understand that I was enough. I had to turn that key. Mm-hmm. They couldn't turn it for me.
The most important thing a type 6 needs to learn is to trust who?
Self.
Right. It makes sense how you couldn't do that when Troy was a little guy, but it was your job to figure out, to take responsibility for how to do that as an adult. Thank you, Troy. Please take a breath.
One more thing.
One more thing.
EPP brought heart into a heartless place. Mm. And I'm not really talking about the prison. I'm talking about myself.
Mm. You stay there. Stay there. Thank you, Troy. Alex.
That's it.
Alex is working with type 9, and the 9s come to teach the rest of us about unity, about being, about wholeness. And if you have the benefit of standing next to Alex, and you can in the lobby when we're done, it's like standing next to a redwood tree. He is unmovable in the best possible way, and sometimes in some of the hardest possible ways. The young 9 gets this idea that I don't matter. And if I don't matter, that's like against my nature. If I am one who sees the whole, who brings the wholeness, who brings the essence of being, the opposite of that is this distorted sense of thinking that I don't matter. So that's the backdrop of your next instructor. Where are you, Alex?
I was sitting there thinking, first of all, I'm just so honored to be able to share this stage. We are the rose that grow from a cement garden. Yeah, and Susan just happened to be the gardener. Yeah. It's awesome. Awesome. Whew. So the deal is today, man, I matter. Woo! And that's huge. I was an alcoholic at 5 years old. How does a child become an alcoholic at 5 years old? Well, I was given alcohol in my bottle when I was a baby to sedate me so I wouldn't be in my mother's way. Because my mother was an alcoholic. And I was raised in a very, very violent home. I'm the individual that Susan mentioned was on the FBI most dangerous list because I would hurt you. And I learned that, now how does a peacemaker be one that would hurt you?
Took the question right out of our mouths.
Yeah, right. The learned behavior, the way I developed and learned that this is how I had to be to survive. 5 years old, I go to the store with my sister, get some groceries. Coming back home, we lived in the projects. I'm from Compton, Los Angeles, and they take our groceries. So we go into the house. My mother said, you got one or two choices. You go back out there and get my groceries and fight a fight that you have a chance to win, or you can stay in here and you're going to fight a fight that you have no chance to win, which was with her. We already knew that. So we went out there and brought my mother's groceries back. My sister developed a reputation where her nickname was Miss Tuffy because she can fight. And she's my older sister. And being 2 years younger, I had to learn to fight because if I didn't, she was going to beat me up all the time. And I couldn't have that. And so that was the beginning of it. And my life and my environment continue to be that way. Not receiving the nurturing that a child would normally get, I didn't have that. So I must didn't matter. But I knew I mattered, but I didn't think I mattered. It didn't feel like I mattered, but it was something inside of me that said you matter, but I didn't believe it. Then I said, okay, well, the only way I must matter is if I just be violent. And I connected with gangs later on in life. I became a gang member at 12 years old. And being a gang member, being violent, perfect fit, great marriage. The more violent I was, the more violent I became, guess what? The more I mattered. And what did I want? I wanted to matter. I wanted to belong. I wanted somebody to see me. And it didn't matter how they seen me. And so I got to the point where in gangs, I was really involved and end up doing some things I didn't want to do. And which I learned come from my type. Because the peacemaker, the type 9, doesn't like conflict. But the reason I don't like conflict is because I don't want to speak my truth, because I'm afraid that if I speak my truth, you're not going to like my truth, and then you're not going to like me. Then we got disconnection, and then there's no relationship. Now I'm back to not mattering. So that leads me to go along to get along. It leads me to go do things I don't want to do, but I'm going to do them because I want to belong.
Can you just feel the setup? It's such a cycle, and it's so against your true nature. I was talking with Alex in his tank top in the kitchen that we're sharing at the Airbnb this morning, and I was looking, I said, Alex, people have such a hard time imagining you being so violent.
Yeah.
It's not really who you are.
It's not who I am at all. But what I learned, and I did use this metaphor, I'm going to use it now. As I became help on the level of developments, I was so low on my level of developments. So low on my level of developments where I would take a life. And who I am with my true essence, who Alex is, and that's what I love about the Enneagram Prison Project. The Enneagram in itself, it introduced Alex to Alex. I learned who I really am, my true essence, my true nature, my divine spark, and what all that entails. But being in a lower level of development is like some of us, I'm gonna age myself, not that my beard doesn't. It's like on an album, on the vinyl records.
I'm with you.
Not a CD, okay? But it's on an album. On the main side, you have all these nice hits and everything, and it's like grooving, this is artists. And then you flip it over, and you're trying to find some goodness to this. Can't even believe it's the same artist. Well, that's how I realize when I'm unhealthy, I am totally, completely opposite of my divine spark of who Alex really is. As violent as I was, I love even more. But I was so guarded, and I had this shield over my heart where I had made up my mind, was that nobody in this world gonna ever hurt me? Because if my mama was hurting me the way she was hurting me, I know the world's can't wait to hurt me, but nobody's gonna hurt me like that no more. So I had put this metal plate over my heart, and I became so disconnected, and it worked for me. It didn't allow things to penetrate in, and I became so hard and callous. The only thing that happened was the true Alex couldn't come out. He was locked behind this metal plate. But when I was introduced to the Enneagram through the Enneagram Prison Project, I get to boast because I was the first class in California to get to graduate from the Enneagram Prison Project. So so all these are my little brothers.
You're glad to get that one in there. I think I want to say this important thing for those of you tracking this, that, you know, we have these dualities. We start whole. People don't come into the world as gang leaders and rapists and murderers and drug dealers. They are conditioned and taught how to be that. Those are roles and masks that we put on in order to be someone, in order to be connected, in order to feel safer, in order to feel worth. And we start to feel ourselves to be this and not that. Well, actually, we are both. We are the worst things we've ever done and the best. And what Alex in the 9 embodiment of unity is doing is telling us that if I can make peace with who I have been, I can also be who I've always known I am. And to zip those things up together and to be in this posture of gratitude, knowing that I'm whole. It's profound teaching. Profound. Take a breath. We do that a lot in our work. I hardly want to stop this man, but I am looking at the monitor, and I want to make a intentional space. And I'll just stay with you, Alex, if you could, and then we'll come back around this way to talk about what are you doing in your life today?
Awesome. Thank you for that question, Susan. So today, let me just start off. Number one, I'm a minister of the gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm ordained. I'm on the board of the Enneagram Prison Project. I'm the director of the Bridge, which is the re-entry process, as we develop that out for individuals who will take the class in custody, and when they come out, we still want to be the support for them. And one that I hold true to my heart is being an ambassador of the Enneagram Prison Project, because if I wasn't that, I wouldn't be the rest. Yeah, and then I'm on the board also of Destination Home, which is a organization in California that works to help with the homeless population, to get rid of the homeless. And the list can go on, but I'll stop right there. And well, the 1, 2, and the most, I was doing good.
I'm glad you didn't stop there, Alex. It's okay.
Well, you know, today I get to be a father and I get to be a grandfather.
Thank you for receiving, Alex. He's all that and so much more. And Troy, will you help us to hear, what are you up to in your life today?
Today, I have my own handyman license. I work with my brother who, thank you, has his own business, another Phillips creation. I am an ambassador for the Enneagram Prison Project. I show up to meetings twice a week. I also go to a thing we call the practice patch, where they have guides in training and guides that want to continue to learn how to come in and guide classes inside of prison. So I sit, I listen, and I try to give my best advice on what helps them, helps me.
It's invaluable. It's invaluable. Thank you, Troy. And Renee, what are you up to with your life today?
I want to say that I'm just like living this unimaginable life, first off, because I surpassed everything I created in my mind about 2 years after I was released. So through this, some of those unimaginable things are like I facilitate like meetings, like I do things for the organization in ways that I never knew that I could do things. And I think that I do it with this really open, loving, and perceptive heart that I've learned how to be with while I'm with everything else around me.
Mm. I also want to make a little space for you to talk about your mom, because you provide her primary care, and it's so precious.
Yeah, we had an EPP camping trip, and I remember I mentioned my first role was always being this, the good son. That was my hiding place, and now that I'm older, my mom, because of her birth defect, she has very early onset Alzheimer's. She's her body is shutting down. She has a colostomy bag. She has this suprapubic catheter, and I took her to this camping trip, and you know, I love my mom so much, and I get to take care of her. And after this camping trip, type 3s also have this essential quality of preciousness, which I couldn't connect with when I first learned about the Enneagram, and everybody was using that word, and I'm in that service with my heart. I never, it's very hard sometimes, and it's very overwhelming, but I never wake up or think to myself, oh God, I gotta take care of this fucking old lady. Like, I never feel that way, never. And I don't think I would have had the patience in my inpatient ways before the Enneagram to be able to do that.
Mm. Thank you, Renee. And last but certainly not least, Dustin, tell us what you're up to with your life today.
In addition to being a full-time college student, I work a lot. Well, my most treasured, up there on the top, is being an ambassador with Enneagram Prison Project. I sit on the board of EPP Canada and launching our program affiliate up there. I recently got asked to sit on the board for EPP in France. I get to go back and decide San Quentin every Wednesday and be lived example for men That's been where all this has been. I get to be a son today, and most important, I get to be a father, a present father.
What does being a present father mean to you?
That I get to be able to, I'm capable of receiving my son just how he is. Let him know that he's enough. He's never too much. Acceptant of whatever it is, and encouraging. And I get to be that example to him that I never had in my life. And so it feels good.
It feels so good. Do you see why we're in love with this work? These precious human beings. There are 11 ambassadors. We have been a 501c3 for, I've lost count, 12 years, and we are just getting started. We teach up and down the state of California and 4 other states. We're in Louisville, Kentucky. And we are in 5 other countries programming in 2 languages, French and English, and also in ASL. We're in San Quentin every single week. Alex, Dustin, another ambassador, and we are committed to changing our systems of how we incarcerate people and how change happens in the human system by looking at our carceral system. And we are in it for the long haul. We are working with the residents of the programs. We are working with mental health. We are working with the commissioners who sit on the board, the psychologists, everyone that will listen to us. So if you are a fan, please check out EnneagramPrisonProject.org. Know that we are doing this work in other prisons that are people who are not aware that they're in them. Those are the people who are running corporations and people who are holding systems of privilege and power in place. We are about bridging the 2 sides of how people are also locked up and helping people to reallocate the resources, because it might not go without saying that we are not good at funding the work that needs to happen in order for the healing that needs to happen. And so thank you for just being so present. You are a gorgeous audience, and we are so honored to be here. I want to just, on behalf of all of us, thank you for being here, and thank you for being the change that we all wish to see.
Yes.